Hi everyone, how's it going? I am Stephen Lahan. I am from the early talent team here at Channel 4. Have an exciting session for you guys today. So we're going to be talking to some of our apprentices who are kind of new, relatively new to Channel 4. Some of them have been here for about a year now. But we're going to be talking about kind of things that they wish that they had known when they started working in an office environment. A lot of us, before we come into these kind of roles, will have a lot of different experiences in the workplace that are all super useful and super relevant. We talk a lot about these kind of transferable skills. For me, before I started working in my first kind of office-based role, I was an ice cream man for 3 years. I worked in a contemporary dance company, touring all over the world, which gave me loads of really valuable experience, but it was very different to the type of experience that you get being in an office, working from home, working with, Outlook Express and things like that. It's just a very different setup. So we're going to be talking a little bit about advice that we might have for our younger selves, or if we were starting this whole experience all over again, what are some of the things that we might have done differently? So, with that, I am going to introduce you to our.
Hello everyone, welcome. So I'm Amy, I'm an all four product marketing apprentice. So I sit within the product team, which mainly focuses on marketing all four as a product. So Channel 4's kind of SVOD service, which is like a streaming service like Netflix. We have all four. So my main role is to market that. So I usually do that through CRM, which is customer relationship management. So that kind of involves sending out emails to the likes of you to tell you about our upcoming shows and about anything that's new or returning. So, for example, Made in Chelsea or The Great British Bake Off. I also work on push notifications and also in-app messages, all with the same goal to really encourage people to watch all four. And before this, I actually never worked in an office. I worked in both hospitality and retail. So hospitality, working in a hotel as a waitress, and then doing retail, working in a pet shop. So very different things, but like Stephen have taught me a lot of very transferable skills, but yes, very different to working in an office environment.
Hi. Oh, hi everyone. Hope everyone's well. So I'm Ashanti and I am currently a talent team apprentice. So I sit within the people team, but to anyone else that's not within Channel 4, that's HR. And predominantly I'm responsible for recruiting for a lot of roles across different areas within the creative sector, like for studio, which is social media, for creative, which is a bit like our advertising company, as well as commercial. So there's a lot of different areas. I've been here for about a year now, and previously, like Amy, I worked in a retail background. I was at Primark, Sports Direct, and had a bit of work experience at Discovery Channel. But this is my first office job, and I will say I've learned a lot of skills being here, guys. So it's good. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name's Charlie. I'm a research executive, but I started as an audience research and insights apprentice in the audience research and insights team. So essentially, we work really closely with the commissioners. So when they commission a programme and it's had its run on Channel 4, we do a bunch of research in the background, basically seeing how it rated and how it performed. So we'll be the ones to break the good or the bad news to the commissioner about how their show's performed. So yeah, that's kind of day-to-day role. Before working at Channel 4, this isn't my first office job. I have worked in an office before. prior to coming here, I was with a private health insurance company, and I worked there for about 3 years. Started in their call centre, and did a variety of different roles across the 3 years that I was there. So definitely not my first office job, but yeah, my first office job was at the private health insurance company, and definitely learned some very valuable lessons about this kind of environment there.
Yeah, not your first rodeo, as they might say.
No.
Cool. And Harvey?
Harvey. I'm in the sales team here at Channel 4. My sort of main role at the moment is the AV apprentice. So I'm managing sort of airtime. I'm bringing brands onto Channel 4 to advertise. So I sort of help make Channel 4 their money. I'll be managing campaigns day to day, just making sure they've got not in debts and credits, and just talking to clients and sort of seeing what sort of audiences they want to target, and making it as most efficient for them as profitable for us. This is my first office job. Before I've worked in sort of retail. I've been a delivery driver for an Indian. I've done all sorts. And yeah, definitely I'd say that I've learned things from those jobs that I've definitely transferred into this role now.
And I suppose, I guess to start off, and this is a question for all of you, we've kind of been talking a little bit about those kind of transferable skills. So with a lot of, particularly like job like retail and stuff, you are working under pressure a lot of the time. You're dealing with a lot of different people. It's definitely a super tough job. What are for each of you some of the kind of transferable skills or things that you took from those jobs that you find that you use in your day to day in this role now?
Most definitely, I would say team building, because being in an office environment, you're within a team, you work with them so closely. You need to be able to know how to communicate effectively, work as a group, and as you said, Stephen, work under pressure, because there's times where you've got to meet deadlines or you've got project work you need to do. So I'm definitely working in retail has taught me and helped me with that. Also just like time management. A lot of the time, like when I was in prime, I kind of had to do a lot of like tasks within a 4 hour shift. Here you've got 8 hours, you've got longer, but you need to know how to dedicate your time more efficiently. And
Mm.
that, for me, that's doing a lot of color coding in my calendar. Like I have a lot of different things for the sake of it. No, joking, but no, for actual things like meetings, project work. It's all about just being efficient and managing your time. To-do lists help me a lot as well. I like to tick off to help me be a bit more productive. But I don't know what the others think. What do you guys think?
So I
Yeah.
think one of
Oh,
the
sorry.
one of the big things I sort of took was just people skills. So just how you talk to people. So say you haven't delivered what they wanted, how you sort of resolve that problem solving, just sort of on the spot, just resolving situations. And I think especially in retail and even hospitality, you'll know that if something goes wrong as you're in the front of house, you're instantly to blame. And I think those skills and just dealing with those situations early on, it helps you know when you do come to sort of this environment, because I'd say now it's a lot less and a lot easier to deal with the situations because of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
no, I agree. Sorry, Stephen.
No, Amy, go for it.
I was just going to say I agree with Ashanti and Harry. I think definitely with kind of Ashanti saying about kind of time management, like the multitasking, is a really important part, especially like working at the pet shop. It was often like managing stock, but then also making sure that, you know, the dogs and cats that come in are actually behaving and being where they should be and dealing with customers at the front of the store. And then same with hospitality, it's definitely multitasking and time management skills that have been great.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose, like, I mean, there's definitely skills that I have used in jobs before that I'm still using in my career now. I think one of the like best pieces of advice that I got, and this was back when I was an ice cream man, was about setting expectations. So, you know, if you think that something's going to take 3 minutes, don't tell the customer that it's going to take 2 minutes, because then they're going to be annoyed when it takes 3 minutes. But if you tell them it's going to take 5 minutes, they're going to be delighted when it only happens in 3 minutes. And I think that that is something that I actually do use current day. It's with very different scales, and what I'm delivering is quite different. So sadly, I'm not delivering, 99s anymore. I'm delivering big pieces of project work, but it's about really clearly communicating and setting expectations with people. And I think that this is something that people don't, when you're really early on in your career and you're kind of making that first leap from those kind of retail or service industry jobs into kind of more office-based jobs, a lot of people undersell themselves in terms of, okay, well, I've never done that kind of a job before, so I've nothing to offer. I'm starting from zero. And any of those jobs that you have are lending you skills. So it's really figuring out when you're writing your CV and when you're selling yourself at interview stage that you're really figuring out actually what are those skills and what are those things and how do I communicate that I'm really good at these things and that I've been practicing and building these skills and that you're not just coming in as a blank slate. So what about for each of you when you came into a kind of an office setting for the first time? Was it kind of as you'd expected or imagined or seen in TV programs and movies, or was there anything that was like quite different?
When I first started my office job, I was actually really pleasantly surprised at how like social an environment it can be, because previously in the hospitality roles that I'd been doing before, it was obviously a very like a customer facing job. You're always talking to people, you're always interacting with people all the time. And I think sometimes with an office job in your head, you can kind of think like, oh, I'm just sat at a desk all day, like doing my own work on my own laptop, not really like talking to anyone. But it is actually a really social setting, like just in terms of like talking to people around the office and like even going for drinks after work and stuff. I think there is sometimes a bit of a misconception that it's very like almost library like, when that's really not the case at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I'd agree with that. I mean, it's not like don't come to an office expecting like Wolf of Wall Street. It's nothing like that. But it's definitely not sort of like a library. It's definitely sort of somewhere you can go and you can go and make a coffee with someone, have a chat. It's not just sort of all work. And I think also I thought it was like a scary place. I
Mhm.
don't know if the others agreed, but I just in my head I thought it's like quite an intimidating, scary place to go into. But once you sort of settle in, you meet everyone. It really isn't. So I wouldn't want people to think going into an office job's like this big scary thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Harvey and Charlie. It's very social when you join. I would say I thought it would be a bit more corporate in the sense that we would have like a dress code. Like I
Mhm.
thought I had to wear like maybe like skirts or, shirts, just like formal wear. But when they came like, yeah, wear whatever you want. I was like, oh, okay. Um, so people know within my team, I'm here for comfort. So there'll be days where I might wear like a tracksuit on a Wednesday because no one's in the office really. But then obviously if I have meetings, I dress a bit more formal. But yeah, there's no dress code. It's just really relaxed here. And like Harvey said as well, you can just like get a coffee. If you just want to chat to someone, it like you're not being monitored. Whereas in retail, you have to like ask to go to the toilet, or
Yeah.
you don't really get breaks as frequently. So I feel like being in an office environment is definitely much more relaxed.
And I think they're both things that really vary from company to company. So the kind of how social things are and kind of the environment that you're in, and Channel 4 is one that's really relaxed and really friendly and like you said, Harvey, it's not like Wolf of Wall Street at all, in lots of different ways, thankfully. But it is one of the things that I suppose you kind of learn throughout your career to I think sometimes when you start it off in whatever industry you're going into, you kind of think, okay, well, the things that I look for in being a quote unquote good job is really good pay and, that it sounds really cool to my friends. And then the more that you're kind of in roles, you realize, oh, actually, maybe the pay isn't as important as not dreading going into work every day or feeling like you're making a difference or feeling like you're working in a company that kind of aligns with your beliefs or your morals and like that as well with the dress code is that yeah, Channel 4 it's very chill in terms of dress code, and that does vary so much from company to company. I know I had a friend um who studies law, and they do have very strict dress codes. I think that they were allowed there's a company memo went out to say that on Fridays they were doing Dress Down Friday, which meant that instead of a white shirt, they were allowed to wear a cream shirt. Yeah, woo, wild. So it does vary so much from company to company. But yeah, I think that it kind of relates back to that idea of feeling that you can bring yourself to work and kind of, feeling comfortable and that you're not kind of fit into those boxes. How did you all find that the kind of adjusting to, what your expectations were in terms of this kind of rigid, scary idea of a workplace to adjusting to kind of being able to relax? Is there any advice that you'd have for someone who's kind of at that stage where they're just, a few weeks into a role and finding that difficult?
I'd say talk to people, like talk to the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're struggling to adjust to the new environment that you're in, talking to people can help you feel more relaxed with them because you have more rapport with them. But
Mm-hmm.
also if you're just honest with them about how you're feeling, like there's things that your manager can do and things that people around you can do, in terms of like advice or anything that they can do really to like help you feel like more comfortable, relaxed in that environment. I think communicating how you're feeling is probably like the best thing that you could do, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, do we agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also, I would say get involved in any like extracurricular activities that are happening within the office environment. So we have like ERGs, which is basically like groups where you can join it. So we have something for women, we have a diversity and inclusion group, we have one for pride. So there's a lot of things outside of your job that can make you feel a bit more relaxed and feel like you can relate to different people, meet different people. It's not just like within your team. So I just feel like communicating and just being social will help you feel a bit more at ease, especially when you start. There's a thing where you feel like you have imposter syndrome. That's how I felt when I started anyway. I was a bit like, oh, am I
Mm.
even supposed to be in this environment? Like I came from retail and now I'm here type thing. So I just feel like just getting involved as much things as possible. I know it can be a bit scary at first, but it does help.
And I think imposter syndrome for, I mean, people in their early career, but honestly, people at any stage of their career is a very real thing. So if anyone's not familiar watching with what imposter syndrome is, it's basically the idea that you, and it can be in social settings, it can be in work settings, the idea that you don't belong there and that someone's going to figure out and catch you out, that actually you're not cool enough to be there, you're not smart enough to be there, and the truth is that everyone has a little bit of that. And I think it can be really tricky when you're starting off in a company or in a new role is you don't want to ask those questions, you don't want to admit that you need help, you don't want to um say that you're nervous because you feel like, oh my God, no, they're going to realize that I shouldn't be here. And the reality is that everyone else who started in the company has felt like that at some stage. Have any of you any advice or things that have worked for you in terms of, I guess, rationalizing that imposter syndrome or helping you to get over that? Or any aha moments, as Oprah would say, where you kind of realized, oh, other people don't know what they're doing as well.
I think sort of a big thing that helped with me is realizing that the selection process you went through, and that means they have picked you sort of, so they've chosen you for a reason almost.
Mm,
And also every single day you see people asking questions, from managers, execs to senior leadership. Everyone's asking questions, and there's no harm in doing that. And I think particularly at Channel 4, there's a really big good culture where you're aware that you shouldn't be afraid to ask, and people prefer you to ask than not, because then obviously you get more experience and then you're better and better at your job. But I definitely think just realizing sort of how far you've come, and then like looking back to when I first started, that I couldn't imagine that I'd be doing the things I am now, if that sort of makes sense.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think for me, it was really reminding myself about the application process, how kind of hard and difficult that was. But throughout all of that, I still managed to get the role. And I think especially coming straight from A levels, coming straight from college, I think it was something I did really struggle with, because it was like, I've never had experience in this. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I think it's great to kind of see, if I could tell myself a year ago, look how much you've learned, and even from a year from now, look how much you will learn. So I think that's really important to remember, that even if you have no idea what you're doing, you are going to learn something, and that can be through trial and error. And the only way you can do that as well is by asking questions. I think, some of the questions I asked in the early days, I think, oh, I can do that now, easy. I don't even know why I ever struggled with it. But everyone starts somewhere, and I think for me, I really hold on to the fact that everyone has always had their first office job. No one came into it knowing exactly what they're doing. Everyone is, at some point, was a first in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice and a really good thing to remember is, I mean, I think that we all have that thing of needing to ask a question and saying, sorry, I know this is a stupid question, but, and the reality is, it's not a stupid question. You probably are asking that because you haven't been told that yet. So that's never a stupid question to ask. I mean, like and this is something that I've learned being, around for a while is I will never be afraid now in meetings when an acronym comes up that I don't know, or a term comes up in a meeting that I don't know, to actually just put my hand up and say, "Sorry, can you explain what that means?" Because early on in my career, I would have thought, "Oh, I'm supposed to know what all of this means," and it's me being stupid that I don't understand that. But the reality is, what I've learned is that when I'm asking those questions, usually there's you know, half of the room also doesn't know what that terminology meant. So you're not slowing things down, you're actually just helping everyone along. So it's just having that confidence of, you're not asking stupid questions, you're asking really relevant questions to help you grow and learn in your role. Um, can anyone think of, either in this role or a role that they've had before, a big mistake that they made, um, and that either like a pitfall or anything that they could give advice to not happen to other people? I mean, I can give an example of, when and again, this goes back to asking questions, is when I started in my first kind of office job, I was working with someone, there was a team of 10 of us, and there was only one other male on the team. And I kind of didn't know what to do in terms of dress code. And the other male on the team, I always wore a suit. So then every day I started coming in wearing a suit, and eventually, after a few weeks, my manager said to me, she was like, "You know that you don't have to wear a suit. Like that's his thing. Like he always comes in wearing suits." So that was like one mistake that I made of just like not asking questions. Can anyone else think of a big or small mistake that they made in kind of their first few weeks?
I wouldn't say a mistake per se, but I would say within like the first few months of my apprenticeship, I probably felt a bit overwhelmed just in terms of dealing with workload. Like
Hmm.
I didn't know how to like manage my workload compared to how I did now, especially in recruitment. Just for insight, like when I first started, I wasn't managing like too many roles on my own because I was overshadowing my manager. However, when I started to get responsibility of like maybe managing 10 roles myself, that's when I started to feel a bit overwhelmed, and I was a bit like, oh, I've got to book interviews for this one, I've got to book another interview for that one, or I've got to shortlist that, and I felt like all my deadlines were kind of clashing at one time. But
Hmm.
I would say, I think it may have been just me panicking and going blank, and thinking I can't do this, I can't do this. But when I actually spoke to my manager, we wrote it down, like, oh, actually, my deadlines aren't as close as I thought they were. I just think I had tunnel vision. So I think my mistake was not just like taking a step back and just like assessing the situation and thinking, actually, you know what, I do have this in order. Just take your time, take it easy, and you're still an apprentice, and you're still learning.
Yeah, I think that's totally relatable, is feeling overwhelmed. And yeah, it's about kind of writing it down and also just communicating it, because sometimes it can seem more daunting than it is, and then sometimes you actually just do have too much work. And then it's having that conversation with your manager to figure out, you know, what what are the priorities there. Um, what, because you kind of touched on it there, Shanti, in terms of feeling super stressed. What advice would any of you have in terms of work-life balance for people who are starting off in this kind of office job in terms of, you know, how you have learned to turn off or how you've learned to kind of, enjoy the time that you're not in the office?
Definitely switch off. Like as soon as it hits, for us, we work like until 6.
Hmm.
As soon as it hits 6, like if you haven't got anything pressing that you need to deal with that day, switch off, like log off. Like don't get into the habit of overworking because realistically, you don't get paid to do overtime.
Hmm.
And I know you may love your job, but you just need that time for your brain to like recharge so you can go again next day, because if you don't, you're not going to be at your peak performance. So you just need the time to switch off. I would say take your lunch break, like your full lunch break.
Hmm.
Sometimes if you feel like you're getting a bit overwhelmed as well, like it may help to just like go make a coffee or tea, just to, like have that time to yourself, because sometimes you might get a bit stressed and you're like, you know what, I just need some time away from the screen. I think that really does help with work-life balance. Don't have emails on your phone as well. I know some people have
Mm.
like that Outlook on their phone. Like, don't have the emails on your phone, guys. Don't do it, because you'll just get into a habit where you're like, I want to check it on the way to work or on the way back home because you think you haven't done anything, and you'll get into this whole anxious cycle. So it's not good. But yeah, guys, do you have any other tips that you would give?
Yeah, no, I think I definitely agree. I remember it's quite funny actually that Ashanti, you bring up the emails on the phone, because I remember I had mine on my phone, and like this time last year you were like, take it off, you shouldn't have it. I was like, you shouldn't have it, it's not a good idea. So yeah, definitely take Ashanti's advice, because she was right. And since like this time last year I've not had the emails on my phone, because it was even like on my commute I'd be checking it and I'd be like, oh my goodness, I can't do anything about this until I get into the office. That's half an hour away, and be stressing for half an hour, whereas I could have just dealt with it then and just not had it on my phone. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice. It also just helps you switch off and really compartmentalize work and life.
I would say also in terms of like switching off, like when your hours are done, like switching off at 6 o'clock, I at points have found it really easy to just get into an absolute like role with what I'm working on at the time, and then all of a sudden I look at the clock and it's like 7, and I've just totally like lost track of the time. So at some points I've actually set an alarm on my phone for 6 o'clock so that it goes off, and I've literally got a noise and something flashing in my face saying stop working. Yeah, because it can be quite easy to get like carried away, especially if you do love your job and you're passionate about what you're working on. It can be really, really easy to get to like lose track of time and not switch off when you're meant to.
Absolutely. And I think it to kind of go back to that point, it's really easy to get overwhelmed and kind of, think, oh, like you were saying, Amy, in that 30 minutes between you being able to actually action something, just feeling that immense sense of panic. And I used to have a manager who said to us, it was back when I was scheduling interviews at Google, and she said to us, she used to always say, no one's dying. In terms of, really sometimes you have to put it in perspective. It's not worth stressing about. And she was saying that because she always used to say that, one time she met with a group of surgeons, and she was having a chat with them outside of work, and she was saying, you know, she was joking, and she was saying, in our job, I always tell people no one's dying, and she was like, what do you say in your job, because you're surgeons? And their response was, no one dies that quickly. So even in those kind of genuine life or death roles, they have to put things into perspective, and kind of can't just take that stress with them all the time. So yeah, it's not worth it at all. Before we head off, any one piece of advice? We've gotten loads of great pieces of advice, but what would be the one thing that you would say to yourself if you were starting this role over again?
I think I'd sort of say just sort of stick to your guns almost. Like if you believe in it, if you think you're right, just keep doing it. Don't worry about what other people think of you, or if you do a piece of work and it's different to someone else. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. I mean, you can be right in so many different ways. So I think that's the one big thing. Stop comparing yourself to others and just have sort of assurance in yourself that you know what you're doing is good, and just take a sort of like a reflection, just take a step back and think, yeah, I'm doing okay, sort of thing.